What's up, everyone? Okay, my voice has gotten better. It's not 100%, but it's about 85%. So it's just been honestly getting over a cold. So Eli asked me what street did my sister didn't live. My aunt lived in Royal Oak. I'm not sure what street she lived on. If my aunt Penny's here, she'll know because it's my aunt Virginia that lived there. Aunt Penny would probably remember. Um, but I'm doing great today. You can hear my voice sounds pretty normal again. So it was just a cold that was just messing up my vocal cords a little bit. Stefan, no problem. We're going to be doing more of playing your music, everyone's music. I want to pick a day. I want to give people notice. Pick a day next week. Pick another day to do it. We'll kind of pick up where we were. That was very, very cool. I loved listening to everyone's music. It kind of gives me an idea of, what people are into. I mean, what better than actually hearing what people. You want to do it on Wednesday? We'll do it on Wednesday. That's totally cool. Wednesday sounds great. Do it Wednesday evening. I can take it from the kind of where we left off in the last one, so people don't lose their spot in the queue. But there were some people that posted multiple things that I had to skip over. Raphael, I haven't watched others late night. What do you do in these? What do I do in these? Tell them what I do in these. I just, it's a little different format here. Hang out, talk. Rob, somebody else posted yours twice. I think that some people, when they're commenting on something, they copy and paste it. So that's why it happens. Mark, what don't I do? I'm not sure what that means. What don't I do? He talked about politics for an hour. I could talk about politics for 10 hours, but I won't. I am as well versed in politics as I am in music. Probably easily as well versed in politics. But I won't spare you that. Did I get a chance to check out Brad Mehldau's new track? If you're talking about his Bach track, did you send that to me, Hassan? You talking about the Bach pieces? Was that it? Tap Finger, what's up? What's up, Greg? Sean, you posted on the forum. Yes, you're talking about the Brad Mehldau. I think that's what you're talking about. His Bach interpretations, his pieces that he wrote. I have listened to them. Yes, I listened to the recording, and then I listened to him play it live in Toronto. There's a video from 2016 of him playing it. So yes, I checked that out. Third channel will be all politics. Desmond, am I going to slap the bass? I'm not going to slap the bass. Yeah, so I checked out Brad Mehldau's. So I checked out the Bach recording. There was some beautiful stuff in it. There was definitely some beautiful stuff in it. I thought that the live performance of it was better, as if he had more time to practice it. I thought it had a much better flow. So, anyways, but it was interesting, and it's for sale. The pieces are for sale. Apparently, he self-published them. Anyways, so, but this Toronto version of it was really good, I thought. So if you get a chance to check it out, it's on Vimeo, actually. It's not on YouTube, believe it or not. Or I don't know if it's on YouTube or not, but it's definitely on Vimeo. Yes, Renzo, Nirvana is one of my favorite bands. Do I know any musicians who don't consume caffeine? Yeah, but not many. What's up, Jeffrey? Nirvana is one of my favorite bands. I mean, I thought everybody knew that. Didn't everybody know that? I thought that I thought everyone knew that that I love Nirvana. Yeah. I mean, I have every Nirvana recording. I have Nirvana bootlegs. I've got it all. And I love Alice in Chains too. I will do an Alice in Chains show. I love grunge. Period. I love every grunge band. I love the grunge. I love the bands that weren't grunge bands at the times, like Smashing Pumpkins. So, Bleach was your favorite. Number 1, the Beatles. Number 1, Swerve Driver. Number 2, Nirvana. You're saying me, right? Yeah, I like STP too, because they weren't really a grunge band. Let's see here. You'd follow you would follow a political channel if it was not SJW echo chamber. What's SJW? SJW. I don't even know what that is. It's -6. Jari, -6 in Finland. Good Lord. Definitely staying in time. Social justice warrior. I don't even know what a social justice. I know what a social justice warrior is, but Cobain did some weird, wrong chord changes, but somehow they were totally great. No, Cobain knew exactly what he was going to. He knew exactly what he was doing. You know, so I had a comment on the video. Somebody wrote that. Somebody wrote a comment, not on that video. Somebody wrote a comment on one of my videos today that saying how Django, Wes Montgomery, Herb Ellis, blah blah blah, knew nothing about theory. And there's somebody else they said in there. But this idea that these people don't know about theory is ridiculous. I think people confuse being able to read well with no understanding theory. So another thing, let me get back to Kurt Cobain. Kurt Cobain's aunt was a music teacher. Yeah, that's Wes knew nothing about theory. That's baloney. Wes knew a ton about theory. Tom, you actually look at my responses to the comments? Wes O Magoo, I don't know you, O Magoo, but Wes knew a ton about theory. Watch the 1965 video of him playing with Pim Jacobs Trio in Amsterdam, where he spends 5 minutes. Okay. You were joking. Where he spends 5 minutes explaining the chord progression of a tune. You cannot improvise over tunes like that if you don't understand music theory. Period. So Tom, you see me. You've seen some of my comments. You've seen my comments that I've actually written on some of my in some of the threads. How many people actually? Ethan, I love that. Savage is a great word. I am savage, right? Are you guys shocked by that? I always wonder if people are shocked by it. But I'm exactly who I am. I am savage on there. It's fun. I don't let people get away with anything like that. You've seen some of my comments? Oh man, I'm all over it. Beast mode. So I'll let people, I'll block people if they're comment spammers. There's people that will go from video to video and do, or they'll stay in one video and they'll comment spam is what I call it. I made up that term. Somebody that'll make a comment and then will go and comment on other people's comments all down through, and they'll have 20, and they try to take over the comments section by getting their comments up to the top. And then I just block them and delete them once they do it. People get blocked if they're comment spammers. Wait, my comments are the best parts. Wait, can you guys see? Can you guys see what I write? Do people actually look at that? I didn't think that people. Rick, I was the same person I was in the masterclass. I am always the same person. I like Beato Nation. That's good. Whereas I being honest when I playing your music, Scooby-Doo? Of course. I'm never not honest. Wait, you just go through comments and some responses, you'll see. So I am brutal or savage. Thank you for that. I am savage. You hit read reply. See, I was always wondering if there's a way. See, my voice kind of gets a little bit scratchy here. I was wondering if there was a way that people could go and read my comments. So I had a guy that wrote to me way back when I first started on YouTube. I probably had 25,000 subscribers. And he wrote to me and he said something like that he had a YouTube channel, or and that he made the mistake of I don't know, responding to trolls or something. He got himself in trouble, and I should be careful. And I said, what are you talking about? Be careful. This is MySpace. I don't mean MySpace, but this is where, these are my videos. This is MySpace. I can say whatever I want in MySpace. It's a free country. Last time I checked. That's what my dad's saying when I said, who'd you vote for, Dad? What are you talking about, Rick? It's a secret ballot last time I checked. He never would tell. My parents would never say who they voted for, ever. So I was on MySpace. Eli, I'm not here to critique your music. I'm here to support you. That's exactly right. That is exactly right. I'm really, I'm fascinated by hearing people's music. I like to hear people's stories too. It's funny. I have a lot of friends that are that have dysfunctional families, and I always ask them about their families. I'm fascinated by people that are from dysfunctional families because my family was incredibly normal, I guess. We got along unbelievably well. We are an incredibly tight Italian family. I talk to all of my siblings, multiple times a week. Some of my siblings I talk to every day. Multiple siblings I talk to every day. I have 6 siblings, but I'll talk to my brother John. I'll talk to Pat, my sister Nancy, pretty much every day. My brother Mike every other day. My brother Ray and Lou, once a week. It depends, but always. Tom, you have to check through all my 400 videos for comments. Oh man, I have some brutal comments on there. But this guy told me this, and I thought about it. He told me I should be careful what I write about or what I write to people. And, every time I write an email, every time I write a response to someone, I always think, okay, what if everyone in the world saw this? When I send a text message to somebody, what if everyone in the world saw this? What would I think? Well, I don't care. I say what's on my mind all the time. And I've done so many live videos here. And I don't feel like I've said anything that I had to backtrack from or anything. Hashtag no filter. I have no filter. I don't have a, no, that's not true. I do have a filter because I like to think I think about things that I'm going to say. But, because I do, Ray, your mom was married 9 times. Come on, that's not true. Is that really true? That is unbelievable. I have a very clean show. I have a clean show because I don't want my kids to watch it, 20 years ago and say, what was my dad's problem? Does that come out in my songwriting? Ray, you're not joking. I don't, what's funny is my songwriting, the only time I wrote songs that I wasn't writing songs for a purpose was when I was in my own bands writing my own music. But I always believed that getting back to saying what you feel, there's a lot of opinion on my shows. People ask me my opinions of things, like they'll ask me my opinions on particular players, or comparing things. So I did the video the other night. I did on the other channel. I did the Bruno Mars video. And then I followed it up with the video of Steely Dan, of Kid Charlemagne. And my favorite part of it was when I juxtaposed, and I like the Bruno Mars song, but when you hear the drum machine and then Bernard Purdie's thing played back to back, so you're hearing the Steely Dan track all the way up until that point. So you're listening to the video for 12 minutes or so. All of a sudden, I pop that in. After you're hearing all this real playing, all of a sudden I put in the Bruno Mars thing, and it sounds ridiculous, right? It sounds like a toy. And then I put Bernard Purdie's next to it. I had to do that because. And then I went back to it and I played it again. Just play a phrase, listen to it, and Bruno Mars easily could have had a real drummer play that same groove, right? I don't forget Chuck Rainey. Chuck Rainey was awesome. Come on, I had the transcription in there too, right? But the idea of the drum machine. somebody said, "Oh, well, some comment was somebody wrote on there, well, the Bruno Mars thing, they might have had a particular swing to it." It's like, come on, stuff is just placed on grid. There's no swing to this. He could have hired someone, fills that pay the bills. He easily could have hired somebody to play that groove that would have actually played it with some gonads, right? It's it really, you know, had some, when you hear Bernard play, it makes your body move. It really does. It's, he saved $50. Why pay a drummer when you don't have to? Now, look, there are plenty of times when it's appropriate to have programmed drums if you're doing dance music, okay? But the Bruno Mars thing wasn't necessarily a dance track. Well, it was kind of like an early 80s synth track. But anyways, but it's ridiculous because the fact was, she had this really stiff kick and snare, but the hi-hat kind of had a little bit of variance to it. It was programmed like a guy might have played it, even though that actually the drum part in the Bruno Mars thing is not really what a real drummer would have played on the hi-hat. But if someone like Bernard Purdie would have played the drums on it, it would have been in my opinion, way better. No comparison. So, how come the Bruno song won over Despacito at the Grammys? Yeah, I don't know. Industrial metal, program the drums, have a drummer play over it. This is another thing. So I've done a lot of metal that was super fast metal that where the drummers play all this really fast, all these fast fills with all this double kick going on, right? This blast beat kind of stuff, super fast drumming. And the thing is, when they play it, when a real drummer comes in to play, most of that's programmed. When a real drummer comes into play, they can't hit rim shots, so they're all doing these center hits. And the difference between a center hit and a rim shot is that a center hit has no oomph to it. The part of drumming where it sounds, when you hear Dave Grohl, when you hear a rim shot where you're actually, really hitting the snare hard, that's what drives a track. And when you hear somebody playing metal, fast metal, and they're playing all these center hits because they can't actually hit rim shots, that's one of the reasons that they use samples in there. That's one of the reasons why it's all programmed, because you can't play those parts. It's not humanly possible to play those parts. My buddy Chris that came in who's a really great metal guitar player, he did this solo record and he programmed all the parts, and the parts he programmed, he had a drummer come in and play them, but yet he programmed parts that are really unplayable. They're not what a drummer would actually play, and it's just weird to hear that. It's very weird to hear that. So, and he was wondering why the drums had no power. And I said, Chris, the stuff is, first of all, it's too fast. You can't really dig in and play anything because, all that stuff like that. The guys can't really hit the drums hard because when you can't even lift your hand to get any power into your stroke when the things are going by so fast, right? So you're lifting your stick this high off the head. You can't get any power in it. So, anyways, and that's the thing too that I always tell drummers, when we're recording, is that and you guys have heard me say this about um, how guys like Bonham knew how to play for the room. For example, he would go out and play the drums and listen to how it sounded in the room, and he would adjust how hard he hits the cymbals, because what you don't want to, you want to hit the drums hard, but you don't want to bash the cymbals. You don't want your cymbals going like this, because they'll sound, they'll actually be phasing. When the cymbals are moving like this, they're actually changing distance radically from the overheads. So when you see guys, and if guys that don't know how to play their cymbals, if you tighten them too much and you're hitting them on the edge, you're breaking your cymbals all the time. But Bonham knew to not bash the cymbals and but yet hit the drums hard, and that's how you get the perfect balance. Especially with guys that are riding on the cymbal like people do in really heavy rock. Don't mic the sides of the cymbals. Exactly. Actually, you can mic the sides of the cymbals, though. When I'm doing cymbal rolls, sometimes I'll mic the two sides. Or I not mic the two sides, but I'll have the drummer play on the two sides of the cymbals with mallets when they're doing swells. That actually works really well. I mean, I put a mic on above it, but I'll have them use two mallets on each side of the cymbals to do a swell, as opposed to doing them right here. Sometimes I'll have them do it in there. Sometimes I'll have them do it on the sides. It's really depends on how you're hearing it or what it sounds like. But that's always something to experiment with. It really depends on how your cymbals sound and stuff. If you don't have a lot of variety, it's hard to get good swells and things. XY or stereo pair on overheads? That's a great question. I made many records with XY. I made many records with spaced pair. And I've made many records with a Glenn Johns for miking, which is really kind of like a spaced pair. Admit I miss producing using all the production knowledge I have. I don't miss producing. I do not miss producing. So small or large diaphragms for overheads, it really depends. I use both. It depends on the tune. I find that smaller diaphragms have more detail, but sometimes you want to get larger diaphragms. I experiment a lot on it. I will try I've tried anything that I've ever heard of. I've tried on drum sessions because I've done hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of them. Any type of miking technique you can think of, I've done a million times. I've used every kind of ribbon mic you can use. I used different mics under the snare. I've used figure eight mics to catch the batter head of the kick drum and the bottom head of the snare. Compressed it a lot. Something Brendan O'Brien does. I've done anything you can think of. I've done on records. Let's see here. John Mayer's latest record I've not heard. What do I think is the hardest instrument? Jack asked. Probably pedal steel is one of the hardest instruments, or the uilleann pipes. Mid-side miking acoustic, of course. Go to overhead pair, 4038s. I'm not sure what go to overhead pair means, Subi-Doo. The pedal steel tone is the best. Yeah, I love pedal steel. How do I move, like how I move fluidly between genres? Um, um, you mean when I'm talking about genres or when I'm doing videos on different genres? How do I move fluidly between them? Um, that's a good question. Uh, Medicine bottle makes for a better slide. Cough medicine or antacid. I've got all different kinds of slides. I got glass. I got brass. I got every kind of slide you can think of. Um, I'm moving fluids now. Um, this depends on the side of your fingers. I think you meant size, Ray. Yes, size of your fingers. I was actually watching some Dwayne Allman videos this morning, as a matter of fact, ironically. There's very few videos of Dwayne Allman. Um, if I thought about starting an Italian cooking channel, it would be a very. I don't cook at all. I admit it. I mean, I could make spaghetti. I'd have to have sauce out of a jar, though. Unfortunately, I can't do something. Uh, Thank you, Roberta. How was Dylan's oboe lesson today? Very good. He was having a problem with his reed, but his teacher did some finagling with it. It was it's tough. That stuff is hard. Um, I'd have to spend too much time talking about music he would have playing in the background. Do I ever record with modeling units, Axe Effects? I have an Axe Effects in the control room that I have recorded a little bit with, but I prefer to use amplifiers. I do. And I came to that realization recently, and my new videos I've been doing, where I'm actually using, where I've been using real amps in all of them. And specifically, I'm putting the amps in the shots. You can see my amp right here. You see my Marshall right here? Where is it? Right here. I have a Marshall there. What's my favorite amp? I'm not sure. I have a lot of amps I like. Going off my Blink-182, can I talk about Jerry Finn a little more? Not a lot about him out there and his production techniques. He was a young guy, died before he was 40. I don't know a lot about Jerry's background. I love the sound of his records. He was an excellent engineer and producer. So yeah. Jeffrey, you've been using an 11 rack amp simulator. I mean, amp simulators are fine. Do I like amps? Jay Monty asked me, do I like amps for the bass or do you like to have a DI included in there? Both. I always record a DI or two DIs. And I record an amp with it. No Rick Radio tonight. No Rick Radio tonight. I can't do that without giving people notice. What's my favorite guitar? You see me playing my Les Paul Jr. a lot. My favorite guitar is always the one that's in tune and closest to here. I do like that Les Paul Jr. though. I run my Axe effects directly into Pro Tools. What's the best process to reamp? Really reamping, the best way to reamp is to go through an amp simulator. That's really the only way. Reamping doesn't sound good. Um, anytime I've done reamping using my Little Labs distribution box, never sounds the same as the amp does, as the guitar amp does with the guitar directly into it. Never, not even close. Ever play guitar with an Evertune bridge? I believe so. I think someone's brought one in here. That's the one that never goes out of tune, right? Tom, you have a hard time using amp simulators. The feel is not right. I agree with that. Um, I think it's really weird for soloing, just with the amp in the room. It's just, I don't know. Roberta, you bought drum swishers today at Jack's Drum Shop. Thinking of taking a few lessons. Want to learn how to flip sticks. There you go. Hassan, Rick, perhaps there should be an announcement board in the forum where mods and can announce stuff like dates for things. Yeah, so we'll do that. We'll do that. Is there a specific volume in dBs that you I'm not sure what you're asking me there. Are you talking about recording in DI? Did I watch any NAMM videos? I watched a couple NAMM videos, not many. Logic amp plugins are not very good. I don't know if I've ever even tried any, to be honest with you. Chris says that the Evertune thing can stay in. You can put a bend stop where the strings won't change pitch when you bend them. That's always so weird. Adam's NAMM video was funny. The new Eventide rack unit is good. Okay. For now, it's still a free country, Robert. Favorite album I've ever recorded? I don't know. I'd have to think about that. I've recorded a lot of albums. A lot of albums. Give Slate's S-Gear amp sim a try. Best you've heard yet. I don't even know what that is. Slate has an amp simulator out. Don't know anything about that. What's Dylan's latest oboe adventure? He had his lesson today, and he's getting it. He's getting he has all the notes and all the registers pretty much, but he's got to keep working on his embouchure, strengthening it, and it's a tricky instrument. It's a really tricky instrument, but he's doing really well in it. Doing very well. So it's fun. It's really interesting to see. I think I definitely have I have less involvement than I did when he was playing his piano because this is much more of a physical instrument. Anytime you blow through an instrument, especially a double reed instrument, the hole is so small on it that you really have to. There's a real you got to really get a feel for. You can't close your lips on it. You can't close off the reed, but yet you have to keep the pressure on it. So it's really fascinating, and and you have to be very accurate with your fingers. I was watching his teacher a lot today, and watching her. The kind of she's a phenomenal player, and watching the kind of her fingering combinations that she was doing. I was telling Dylan, don't lift your fingers too high. All these little things that you do when you're first learning an instrument to is really really crucial. Dylan definitely got some bad habits when he started the piano. He was he had a collapsed index finger that he never was able to kind of get out of. It always bothered me. His first teacher was really bad, and when kids are 4.5 years old and they start the piano, most of them will have some joints that are, especially your index finger. It seems like that joint will collapse like that, and Dylan could never break out of that. I don't know why. It was really really odd that that he couldn't break out of it. But he just developed these really bad habits right off the bat, and those are the kind of things that his teacher's really aware of. I'm noticing that she doesn't. If his pinky goes under the horn at all, she immediately tells him to bring it out and keep his hand up like that. And she was talking about hand synchronization things on the oboe today, and having him do, if you don't exactly synchronize your hands, the notes it'll sound like the attack will sound like in the uilleann pipes or something, it'll get that kind of bagpipe sound to the attack. But she was showing him how to just before you play the note, when you're on a breath, you're changing. It's a split second thing, and she said that he'll get the handle of that. But the really hard with kids to most kids don't have natural do not have proper hand position on whatever, on the piano, on the guitar, so it's difficult. I was watching a video today with Dweezil Zappa, and Dweezil was talking about sweep picking, and on the guitar, it's nothing people used to talk about when I was growing up. Nobody. I mean, guys like Frank Gambale did it, but you never heard of Frank Gambale, before the early '80s or mid '80s. And you would sweep things if you were sweeping like a major seventh arpeggio. It was very common to sweep that. But this economy picking and sweep picking and things like that just were not part of the vocabulary. And these things, if you don't learn them when you're young, they're very hard to do later on. Now, guys like Wes, there was, he did some really weird picking with his thumb, where he did upstrokes. But I think a lot of his phrasing was because of the way that he used his thumb. He played really interesting. He had really interesting phrasing because of how he used his thumb. On single notes, I mean. So the idea of having odd number of notes on a string in order to sweep, that concept was no one ever talked about that when I was growing up. You never heard about that. David asks, you never learned how to sweep pick. Do I think it'll significantly hurt or limit your playing? Well, most of the greatest guitar players don't sweep pick. I mean, most of the most famous guitar players never were sweep pickers. So probably not. But there's definitely some things that are easier to do. Now, hybrid picking is something that I did all the time. I always did hybrid picking, where I hold the pick and I pick with these fingers at the same time. So, Jari, right-hand sweep tap-on's extremely difficult. You're talking about when you're sweeping and then you tap? Because that's very hard to do like that. Al Di Meola doesn't sweep pick, and he can play anything. But Steve Morris does not sweep pick. He does arpeggios. I mean, it's really impractical when you think about it. But I thought I alternate picked everything. But some of you have pointed out to me, or some people on my channel, that I do not alternate pick everything. So I always thought that was interesting. I always thought that I didn't sweep pick. I mean, I actually play some things I can sweep pick, but I never. When I'm demonstrating stuff, sometimes I say, "Oh, I'm alternate picking this," and then somebody will say, well, "You're saying you're alternate picking it, but then in the video you're not alternate picking it." And I literally never realize it. It never even occurs to me that I'm not sweep picking, that I'm not alternate picking. I'm thinking that I am, but it just doesn't come out that way. So, Jim Hall did baby sweeps. I think us old guitar players don't realize what we do. I think that's it. Ray, I combine 3 or 4 different picking techniques when you sweep. Yeah, there's a lot of picking where people will do some sweep picking and then we'll actually pluck. We'll do hybrid picking and sweep picking together. Or sometimes you'll sweep a couple notes and you hybrid pick with 2 fingers. I mean, there's so many different techniques to master out there. It's great, but I would tell people that if you're teaching kids, if you have a child and you want them to learn, I would teach probably economy picking right off the bat. I mean, I would definitely do that, because I think it's almost impossible for people to learn it later in life. I need to check out Danny Gatton. David, you're serious, right? That I need to check out Danny Gatton like I've not heard Danny Gatton when he was alive? It's amazing to me when people say I need to check out people that are, people that like every guitar player knows. That's my age. It's like saying I need to check out, I don't know, Jimmy Page. Rick, you need to check out Jimmy Page. What? Who? God, come on. Let's see here. Let's see. I should check out Jeff Beck. I need to check out Jimmy who? Oh, brother. Never heard me mention Danny Gatton. David, I'm just joking with you. I've mentioned Danny Gatton. Danny Gatton was a incredibly great guitar player. I have mentioned Danny Gatton, but I probably mentioned Danny Gatton as much as I've mentioned Lenny Breau. Have you heard me mention Lenny Breau or Ted Green? I mean, guys that well, I mean, Lenny Bro's a better example. Guys that Peter Tork. I think guys that David, don't get mad at me. Don't get mad. Guys that I think it's more of like Lenny Bro and Danny Gatton because both of them have been dead since the '80s, and that's not a reason to not mention them, but it's uh, they don't, maybe they don't come to mind. Um, just like Ed Bickert's, like I haven't thought about Ed Bickert in years, and he's still alive. How many of you know Ed Bickert? He's a great classical guitar, or I mean jazz guitar player. Danny Gatton passed away in 1994. I mean, it's been 25 years, and Lenny Bro died in what, 87 or something. I mean, these guys have been dead a long time. Um, I mean, Stevie Ray's been dead since what, 1989 or so. Um, um, Ed Bickert is a great guitar player, but I don't think of Ed Bickert. I don't know why. It just, um, Julian Lange is a great guitar player. Um, Ted Green's Modern Jazz Progression book is. Ted Green's books are confusing. I agree. Peter, do I like acoustic player Michael Hedges? I loved Michael Hedges. He was great. Um, um, Terry Kath, there's another guy that died. He's 78. I don't think of a lot. Danny Gatton's got a lot more YouTube videos than most people, though, because he did instructional videos and things like that. Um, um, so, and I shouldn't forget about people like that. Trying to think who else I was going to mention there. Eric Johnson is a secret sweeper. Is he really? Oh, Terry Kath. That's what we were talking about. I've definitely mentioned Terry Kath. Do you guys remember when I played Chicago at his end solo, and I've been searching? Um, Roy Buchanan. Um, Larry Coryell. It's interesting. I saw Larry play when I was a freshman in college. I was never a massive Larry Coryell fan. Um, he did some great stuff that I like, but most of the stuff is I was not a big fan of. Um, um, I don't know if I've seen that Kiko and um, video with with Guthrie. Jack Wilkins. Jack's a great player. I think I played with Jack. I'm pretty sure I played with Jack. I'm not positive, but I'm almost positive I played with Jack Wilkins before. Um, and he was a really good player. Um, Guthrie is better for sure. Guthrie's a monster. He's awesome. Love Guthrie. I know Tom. Um, Tom is a great guitar player. Um, I'm looking here on the chat. There's tons of things going on in the chat right now. People mentioning many different guitar players. Um, so uh, I saw the Guthrie with Satch and Vi. So I was watching a video today where Dweezil Zappa is in Steve Vai's kitchen, and he talks about taking lessons with him, and he brought in his lesson book from when Steve was when Frank had Steve give Dweezil some lessons, and he was, I think, embarrassing Steve. He was showing Steve the things that Steve was writing out for him. It was probably about 10 pages of lesson stuff. I just appeared on my YouTube channel today. I don't know if it's a brand new video or what. It looks like it's pretty recent. He's definitely in Steve's kitchen, though. And he's standing there, and he's got this notebook, and he's showing it to Steve, and I think Steve is horrified. Anyways, it's really interesting. You should check it out. It was very, very funny. You're gonna look for that video, yeah. So it's Dweezil Zappa and Steve Vai. I'm pretty sure it's a new video though, and I think the stuff that Steve was writing in it was really funny. But if you get a chance, check that out. That was interesting. There's a great video of Steve describing his Zappa audition. Stray Cat, you found it? Roberta, you're going to study the songwriter for Wichita Lineman. That's Jimmy Webb. He's a great songwriter. You know, it's interesting. Have I talked about the Sound City movie? You know, I have the Sound City movie. And it was an interesting movie, but here's the weird thing. So Dave Grohl bought the console out of Sound City and replaced his vintage Neve console with another vintage Neve console. I'm not sure what the I had some drums tracked in that studio, in Dave's studio. I'm not sure why he swapped out one Neve console for another, but anyways, I just thought that was interesting. That's what I mean. People, when they watch the movie, I don't think they realize that. Let's see here. There's too much stuff going on here. I can't read all this. Today's bands are less skilled because they don't have a label developing and working with them like in the old days. Are today's bands less skilled? Joe asks. Yes, they are. People don't spend the time. There's a couple things that go on. So I went to this daddy-daughter party with my two girls a little while ago that I came home from at, I don't know, probably 8:30 or so. And my daughter Lennon's best friend, Caitlin, was with her dad, who I'd never met before, and her sister that's 4, Layla's age. And so four of us went out. We met at this place. It was like a daddy-daughter get-together. And I'm trying to remember my point of my story here. What was I talking about? I had a point to the story here, other than Layla making fun of me because I was spacing out. What was I just talking about? Wow. Bands being less skilled. Oh, yeah. Thank you. Thank you. So I was talking to Caitlin's dad, and who's a super nice guy, and we were talking about the fact that um, that you can't. If someone let an 8-year-old go out, was walking around town, their parents would be arrested nowadays. Yet when I was 5 in 1967, we would go out trick-or-treating by ourselves. Every 5-year-old in the neighborhood would go walking around town in upstate New York. And there'd be hundreds of kids on the street, and you never thought about it. And I always say to people that the reason that kids nowadays, most kids can't write good lyrics, is because they don't have any life experience, because they're way overprotected by their parents. Now that doesn't mean that you shouldn't keep your eyes on your kids all the time. But I mean, I used to get on the bus and go to downtown Rochester when I was a little kid. I had money. I wouldn't even tell my parents. I'd just get on the bus. I'd ride downtown, walk around downtown Rochester, and take back out to the suburbs, to where I lived. I lived in a small town, suburbs. I mean, a small town. My town is 5,000 people that I grew up in. 5 minutes you're in farmland. But in 20 minutes you could be in downtown Rochester, and I would be walking around there by myself, just looking around, doing stuff, going to the library and the city library, stuff like that, and having experiences by myself. That kids never would have. You'd never let your kids do that. It'd be like me letting Lennon take the bus into downtown Atlanta or something, by herself. So that to me is why kids can't write lyrics anymore, because they have no time experiencing the world on their own when they're 10 years old, when they're 12 years old. I would go around the town doing this thing. So I'm going to tell you a story here. So when I was in 9th grade or so what, 14? One of my best friends' dad was the chief of police in our town. Joe Pachotti, his name was. That's my friend Joe. We're still friends. So Joe, I used to walk over to their house and hang out with them. Elliot, see, you used to go into Boston, take the train. You never thought about it. Your folks never. You didn't even. It wasn't even an issue. You never even talked about it. You just go, right? So, anyways. So I would walk over, because we didn't have public transportation in my town, and it was about probably 4 or 5 miles away, and I would just literally run over there to their house. And I used to hitchhike all the time too. I've hitchhiked a million times, but I would go over to their house, and I'd be walking across town all the time. Everywhere I went, I walked. Right. So one day I'm coming back through the downtown. Or uptown, as we called it, in Fairport, the little town I'm from, and there's the Erie Canal goes right through the town, through the center of the town I grew up in. It's probably a quarter mile from my parents' house, and I heard this guitar playing, really incredible blues playing coming from. They had this tower. There's a guy that would lift the bridge. It was a lift bridge. And anytime a bigger boat would come through, and it wouldn't have to be that high of a boat, the bridge would stop traffic in town and the bridge would lift up. It'd take about a minute and a half or so to go up to its top. The boat would go under, and then it'd slowly go back down. And you weren't allowed to be you could walk up and walk across and then walk downstairs on the other side. But then they stopped letting kids, because it was really dangerous, get on the bridge when it went up. Anyway, so I hear this guitar playing up, coming from the place, this thing. It's 2 stories up. You could never see who was up there. The guy that controlled the bridge, the lift bridge. So I hear this smoking fast guitar playing going on up there through an amp. So I get up my nerve and I was like, I'm gonna go check this out. I'm gonna go up to the guy up in the lift bridge tower, right? And I knock on the door, and the guy was startled, right? And he's there shredding away playing blues. And he let me in, and we started talking. I told him I played the guitar, and I said, "Man, you sound amazing, all this stuff." And I said, "What are you working on?" And he started playing all this stuff. What's cracking? Oh, it's my chair is cracking. Sorry. So he started showing me some blues licks and things, and then he said, "You play my guitar." And I remember I was playing Donna Lee for him, and he said, "That's Donna Lee, right? Charlie Parker? Oh, you got to teach me that." And so I taught him Donna Lee, and then I used to go to the lift bridge all the time. He was practicing. The guy was probably in his 20s or so, but I was like 14 or so, and I would go hang out, and I'd learn licks from the guy all the time, and it was amazing. But this was like, just stuff you did. You go talk to strangers like that, and I'll never forget it. I mean, this guy was really a great player, and he was kind of like Stevie Ray Vaughan. That's kind of what his playing was like. Smoking blues player, super fast licks, heavy strings, played a Strat, and would just sit up there and woodshed all day, and watch until a boat was ready to come. Then he'd be like, "Oh, hang on a minute." He'd put his guitar down, and then he'd do the thing. He's like, "Oh, you want to hit the lever," and then all of a sudden the bridge starts rising up. All the traffic in town stops and everything. The boat goes under, and so it's probably 1976, something like that. But it was really fascinating, and he raised the bridge, right? And he worked there for about a year and a half or so. Then he disappeared. I never saw him again. I always wondered if he was out there somewhere. I mean, he probably is in his 60s right now. He was amazing though. And he woodshedded all day. I mean, every time. So every time I would walk uptown, I'd go listen to see if he was playing there. But he was. Then it got to be a routine thing where I'd stop by there. Then there was another band that played. So we're talking like probably, if I had to say, it was not even a half mile. So away from my parents'. Then just before you got to Lift Bridge, there was another band that would practice at night that practiced over this bar. And they were this 3-piece band that did covers of all these prog tunes, Rush, all this stuff, UFO, all these kind of progressive hard rock bands of the 70s. And I would knock on the door. I went up to their thing and knocked on the door, and they let me in. They were a bunch of long-haired dudes. One of the guys' name is Dave Sestito. He actually makes foot pedals now, and my brother's friends with him. And they were unbelievable. And I would sit in on their band practices where they would play Rush and all these songs. And this guy played, it was a 3-piece band, and the guy played the solos note for note, and it was smoking. And so I would hang out there for a couple hours, and he'd play like Michael Schenker, or he could play like Alex Lifeson. He knew the solos note for note and played them perfectly. And so like this is in this small town within 500 yards of each other. I'd spend an hour or 2 hours at the lift bridge thing. Then I walk down the thing, and I go into this band practice. with these guys that were high schoolers, and I was in junior high, and they let me in, and I just knock on the door. Hey man, can I come in and check this out? I didn't even know these people. The stuff that you didn't even think about. And they let me in all the time to listen, and all I did was just listen and watch, and I was just mesmerized when they would do these covers, these phenomenal covers. So that was but my brother keeps in touch with that the guitar player of that band, Dave Sestito. He literally has pedals that Alex Lifeson uses. He makes pedals that a lot of big name people use. The guy that was the guitar player of that band. So these are things that I was lucky enough to be exposed to. People that had, or having a small town with these great players in it. Then I had this guy, my friend Andy's brother. His name was John Carini. That was a guitar player. He was 3 years older than me, and he was an amazing guitar player. That I worshipped his high school band called Elias, and I played in a band with his brother Andy, and I would go over to their house. Their dad owned a construction company in town. They were wealthy compared. I mean, my parents worked in factories. I lived on the poor side of town. They lived in I forget what it was called, not Bramble Ridge, but they lived in this part of town, one of the highest points in town. They had a house that had this big game room with a pool table and everything that their band played in. And so my friend Andy's older brother John played in this band Elias. That was an incredible band that had originals and covers. I remember going in and John was playing. He had a beard in high school. He was on the football team. He was all-state football player, linebacker, and a phenomenal guitar player, rock guitar player. He had an Ampeg V4 with power soak on it with an attenuator that I'd never seen before. That his teacher was Tom Rizzo, whose lawn I mowed, and Tom lived 2 blocks from me, and Tom ended up being the guitar player that played with Maynard Ferguson for years and subbed on the Tonight Show. And these people are all within, all in my town. So JC, John, I remember seeing him playing his Les Paul, wine red Les Paul Standard, and I was just in awe. And he had a beard in high school, and he had an attenuator. I was like, what is that? He goes, it's an attenuator. And he had this amp, and just incredible sound. When you crank these Ampegs, these old Ampegs, it sounded like Queens of the Stone Age sounded. But JC was playing this back in the 70s. And he and the other guitar player both had Ampeg V2s. The other guitar player played some type of a Strat, I think. And then John played a Les Paul. And they just had this amazing guitar sound. But both guys had power soaks or attenuators on their amps. It was just so it was really incredible in that time that I had a beard in high school later on. By the time I was a junior or so, I could grow a beard. When I was just growing up in that time, plus my school had an incredible music program. When I was playing bass. So this, this goes along with, with my aunts being music teachers and my dad and mom being totally into music and supportive and everything. And my dad listening to jazz all the time. So it's, it was, lucky time to grow up, and people that had really, really varied tastes. Really varied tastes. I mean, really, just right in my family, my siblings had incredibly varied tastes, and having 6 other siblings, we got exposed to a lot of different kinds of music. My brother Lou was very big into the Allman Brothers and Eric Clapton and anything that had a lot of jamming into it. Leonard Skinner, any type of southern rock he was into, and he was into Pink Floyd. Anything that had a lot of solos in it, he was into. And my brother Mike liked Frank Sinatra and things like that. He was totally square. But my sisters loved the Beatles and Carole King and and the Stones and all that kind of stuff. And then my brother Ray liked Led Zeppelin and Aerosmith and all the rock bands that were out then. So I heard everything just in my house between my siblings. Everybody had their own taste. That was kind of the thing of being from a huge family. You wanted to own your own music. That was really a really important thing, is owning your own music. Your own taste and stuff. So, I mean, I started getting my own records, and I was a little kid. Do I have a sibling into country music? My mom loved country music. Oh my God. When I when I had that number one with Parmalee, my mom said to me, "I told you that you should do country music forever. I've been telling you." No, I'm not the youngest. I'm the second youngest of 7. So that was always funny, and I was like, "Well, you were right, Mom. That was my ticket, was country, and I never knew it. I should have listened to you." My mom was into opera as well, so favorite decade, Joe. Um, Favorite decade. Oh man, I don't know. That's a great question. That is a great question. Um, 70s were great. I mean, 70s were really, really fascinating. 60s were interesting too. I don't remember as much of the 60s, but I remember the 70s incredibly well. Um, Elliot, those early varied experiences. Elliot knows. I mean, Elliot, with your dad being exposed to all those incredible musicians that your dad played with. Uh, you know, that's a massive effect on everything. It affects, all this stuff is builds your entire life. Every experience builds on one another. You can see when people have problems that kind of follow them through their entire life, that all these things that happen, these little incidents that keep happening and keep building upon one another to develop your personality. You can't really it's hard to nail any one thing down unless you have really a really traumatic thing that happened in your life that affects you for your whole life. Like Bach lost his 2 parents when he was 9 years old. No question that experience shaped his life differently. My mom lost her brother. Well, she lost one of her brothers when she was 16 and he was 17, but lost her other brother when he was 37, and he had 3 kids. My cousin Janine, that's my age, when he passed away, she was 7 years old, and that profoundly affected her for her whole life. No question about it. It really does. I think one of the come on, Eileen. What? Come on, Eileen. What? I think that it's that I've said this before. One of the reasons I'm doing these videos is to leave a historical record for my kids. There you go. Who was your dad? What are his stories? If they ever want to know, they're here. Charlie Hunter, great guitar player. Love Charlie Hunter. What is my opinion on multi-effects unit processors? Depends on which one. Tom, you got everything from your mom. Very eclectic. She loved country, rock, classical, gospel, prog. That's awesome. Tom, how old are you? I know I asked you that before. I want to say you're probably close to my age. Are you? Are you in 50, 52, something like that? Let's see here. So family is top priority for me. You're 60, Tom. Okay, cool. So you're a few years older than me. Italians are all about family. Renzo, you are so right. Family is everything. You know, in the beginning of The Godfather, he says to Johnny Fontaine, "You spend time with your family?" Yeah, of course. Because a man who doesn't spend time with his family is not a man. It's almost like Marlon Brando was just making these lines up. You know, making these lines up on the spot from stuff he heard his family say. I hope, Elliot, that they're gonna like watching them. So I gotta tell you this one story here today that. So I'm sitting at this restaurant with the girls today, and I'm eating, and I just kind of stare off into space, and I'm kind of daydreaming for a minute as I'm eating, and I do that a lot apparently. So Layla says, "Daddy, you're doing that weird thing again." I said, "What?" She goes, "You just staring. It's really creepy." I said, "What are you talking about?" And then she does this weird look with her eyes bugged out like I do. I said, "Is that what I look like?" And both Layla and Lennon said, "Yes." I said, "How often do you do that?" They said, "All the time when you're eating." And I was, they said, "What are you doing when you're doing that?" I said, "I'm just daydreaming." I said, "When you guys daydream, don't you just kind of look out the window?" And I know they do. And they said, "Yeah." I said, "Well, that's what I'm doing." Anyways, I love that. I'm gonna crack up. It looks creepy. My 4-year-old, it looks creepy. It's awesome, right? I'm like, you're chewing, you're thinking about, I'm just kind of thinking about something. I got something on my mind. I got a blank stare. I mean, what am I supposed to do, right? They're gaslighting me, exactly. Am I supposed to close my eyes or something and daydream? No, I mean, I'm meditating. That's it, Renzo. You're right. I'm literally lost in thought. So the dad that I had never met, Lennon's friend Caitlin's dad, who I'd never met, was an incredibly nice guy. He says to me, he asked me what I do for, what I do. And I said, I was a music producer, but I make YouTube videos now. And he says, "What do you make videos about?" And I said, "All different things on music, music theory, all this kind of stuff, you know, music analysis, everything." And he goes, "Well, how do you get ideas for your videos?" And I said, I think of topics that I want to talk about or that I like, and I listen to, I stay current with music, and I study all the time. And he said, "How many videos have you made?" I said, "Oh, probably 500." Because I was looking at it, I'm at 403 on my main channel, but I have a bunch of hidden videos that I put out that I said I'm going to hide that one. And then on this channel, I've got probably 80 or so. I've got at least 500 videos made. I mean, it's insane. I've also I'm up to 218,000 subscribers on the other channel, which is insane. I'm getting over 1,000 subscribers a day. Hide? Yes, I've hidden some videos. For example, I did a video on the linear chromatic concept that I hid because because Adam Neely did one with me 3 days later. So there was no point in having mine up because his was more interesting than mine. And I'm in both, but anyway, so that's kind of why but I have other videos that I hid. Not many, a few though, that are private. They're not unlisted. They're private. Sign up position, see Rick's hidden videos. Anyways, all right. My voice still holding out pretty well. I still hear that little crackle in it here. 76 videos on this channel, Jerry. Okay, there you go. 76 videos. So it's close to being at release the vids. It's close to being at at 500. And he said, "How long?" Caitlin's dad said, "How long have you been making videos?" I said, I don't know, just over a year and a half. And he said, "You made 500 videos?" Because I told him I have a second channel that I've made a lot of videos. And I said, "Yeah, it's close to." He says, 500 videos in that long? And he said, "How long are they?" I said, "Oh, some of them are hour and a half long, like this one, right?" I feel better, Elliot. Definitely getting better. But that's why I've been taking time off. So I might take tomorrow off. You digging the sweater? Man, it was cold again tonight. Oh, brother. But it's the daffodils are coming up here in Atlanta. That's always a good thing. On February 1st, the average temperature in Atlanta starts being 50 degrees a day. And then by March 1st, it's 60 degrees a day. So it's coming. Super Bowl tomorrow. I'm taking tomorrow off. We'll watch the Super Bowl. The kids always like the Super Bowl. My wife watches the Super Bowl. Would like to hear Dylan play the oboe. At some point, you'll hear Dylan play the oboe. Is that a Hackintosh? Yes, I'm on a Hackintosh right now, and I do love green tea. I love matcha tea, but I drink regular green tea too. What's my team tomorrow? My team is not the Patriots. My brother-in-law is from Boston, and he's awesome. But after last year, I never liked the Patriots. Sorry. Renzo, I used to be an Oakland Raiders fan, but that's when Daryl LaMonica was their quarterback in 1967, with Fred Biletnikoff was playing wide receiver. And then I went to, so I was a Raiders fan for years, and then I became a Buffalo Bills fan in the 70s when we used to go to see the Bills play. I was a fan when John Madden was a quarterback, and I'm sorry, Elliot, I apologize. So John Madden was the quarterback, and then it went from Daryl LaMonica to Kenny Stabler. George Blanda was the backup quarterback, who was the kicker, who's I don't know if he's still the all-time leading. I think he had over 30,000 points between being a quarterback and a kicker. I saw OJ run, in 1973, I think it was, when he rushed for 2,003 yards. I saw him in that season. Elliot, I was a Red Sox fan when I lived in Boston. Even though most people from where I'm from, because I'm from Rochester, our farm team, the International League team, Baltimore, the Orioles farm team is the Rochester Red Wings. So most people in upstate New York, it's weird, are not Yankees fans or anything because they're Red Wings fans. Everybody from there, because all the people that would go down to AAA and they'd go back and they'd play at play with the Orioles. It was Rich Stadium, Eric. that back then it was Rich Stadium. I mean, Rich Stadium was pretty new back then too. It was unbelievably cold back then. When we'd go to see, I mean, Rich Stadium in the wintertime, it was unbearable. But I mean, I saw some of the famous Oriole players that were that were Hall of Famers. I saw them play in the International League. I saw them play with the Red Wings. Unbelievable. Do I miss working on tape? I saw Jack Nicklaus play. I saw with the PGA in Rochester. That's I saw him when he won the PGA 19. It was the last major championship in 1986. Brooks Robinson, of course. I remember, when the Orioles had 4 20-game winners, 1972. Mike Cuellar, Jim Palmer, Dobson. Who was it? Was it McNally and Dobson, Jim Palmer, Cuellar? I think were the 4. They had 4 20-game winners. On the Orioles in the same year, 4 20-game winners is amazing. This is before people were specialists as relief pitchers. Those were the good old days. Mark Belanger on second base. There you go. The Orioles were amazing back then. I love the Orioles back then. Boog Powell. I was a complete sports junkie growing up. I was a massive trivia. I knew any kind of sports trivia, basketball, baseball, you name it. Paul Blair, there we go. Elliot, you played Stratomatic baseball, just finishing 69 World Series with the O's Mets. There you go. There you go. Raleigh Fingers. So, that was it. So the Oakland A's was my other baseball team that I loved. Back when Reggie Jackson played, Vita Blue played, 71. In the early 70s, I was a huge Oakland A's fan. Catfish Hunter, yeah, exactly. Sports is like music. Everybody's something. I'm going to do a sports show. And that's my next Sal Bando. Exactly. That is my next. That'll be my next channel. Is going to be all sports. Okay. Anyways, all right. We're good for tonight. Enjoy the Super Bowl. You guys are awesome. I'm going to pause. We'll talk about the Amerks and the Sabres after too. You guys are amazing. This is great. We'll do some sports trivia next time.